Hey, what's up, folks? It's Aaron Dodson with Christianity Now. And as you can see, I am by myself today, missing my main guy, Tony Brewer. And who knows when all is said and done, how the show will turn out. I'm going online now on my devices to make sure this show is streaming online like it's supposed to be. I'm not the one who normally sets all this up, Tony is. But I think I'm good to go. I have successfully gone live without successfully putting in my title. Let's see here if I can't change that. All right, let me see if I can't change this. Let me know if you can hear me and if you can see me okay, so I can communicate as effectively as possible. You do not know what I'm going to talk about because I didn't put it in the stream details, but I'm trying to type that in now for future reference. Today, I'm going to be discussing some of my thoughts about the book of Revelation. This is a needed study, and I think it's often, if I could just spell oppressor correctly, that would help. All right, let's see if I can't. All right, here we go. All right, I'm about to get going here. I'm just trying to finalize a few things. I'm rough on the edges because I don't normally do this by myself, as you all know. Join in live. Okay. I want to discuss kind of my own personal journey, if you will, of studying the book of Revelation. I'm not going to go, I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. Okay, here we go. All right. Hey, thank you so much. Hey, Alabama. And if you're watching live, feel free to give me a comment so I can help build up the interaction on the show. Just share this. I want to go online now and share the video. If you would, just do me a favor because I didn't post a pre-show post, so viewership might be down more than normal. So if you wouldn't mind helping me out by going to Christianity Now and sharing the live stream. If I could just get this real quick, I think might help me out a little bit here in the live stream. Hey, what's up, Wayne Vaughn? Yeah, video somewhat choppy. That doesn't surprise me. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hope that you can make out what's going on. Today won't be as long a show, probably. I'll go ahead and say maybe, probably, won't be. But I wanted to take the viewers through some of my thoughts on the book of Revelation. Tony's not with me, as you can see. He's out of pocket today. He's doing fine. He's not sick, but he's just out of pocket, so he won't be on the show today. And he said, "Hey, if you want to go live, Aaron." So I wanted, like I said, this is the third time now I'm saying it, so I'm going to dive right in. I want to discuss the book of Revelation because the book of Revelation has an intended meaning. And anytime we're trying to interpret any verse of the Bible, any chapter of the Bible, any book of the Bible, we need to come to the understanding that the Bible, first and foremost, was not written to us, but it is for us. And when we keep that in mind, we're going to come with the right conclusions, or at least a more accurate conclusion, a more accurate interpretation. And as you may be well aware, the book of Revelation, a lot of people go to the book of Revelation to say a wide range of ideas, contradictory ideas even. And so, what does it mean? What is it about? There is obviously a power recorded in the book of Revelation, an oppressor that's hurting the people of God. And there is obviously an audience, a group of people to whom the letter was originally written, And I'm going here, if you see me looking to my right, I have some of my own type notes that I want to reflect back on as I'm going through here to kind of keep me on track. And there is a time frame in which this book was written. And I realized that people of all sorts, people within Christendom, the broad range group that calls themselves Christian, I realized that the different so-called denominations, they have varying opinions on it. I realized that, and I realized that even within the churches of Christ, there are a wide range, at least, I say a wide range, at least two, maybe three different views of the book or explanations of the book. And as far as the dating of the book goes, a lot of people will say that they either believe in the early date or the late date and that kind of thing. But what I want to do is take you on my own personal journey very briefly as a means of introduction into the book of Revelation. So I've been blessed. Hey, what's up, Jason? Thanks, brother. Thank you, brother. Keep up the Lord's work. Thank you so much, Jason, for tuning in. Thank you, Wayne, for your comment. First three chapters can help us in today's church on how we need to contact ourselves in Christian walk, etc. Oh, absolutely. You know, the first three chapters of Revelation was written to the the whole book originally was written to the churches of Asia Minor, the seven churches of Asia Minor. And there's so much in there, practical application for us. And I believe that there is much that we can learn from the rest of the book as well, even if the rest of the book, just like the first three chapters, was not written to us, but it's for us. I think most professing Christians would say that the book of Revelation is about victory. And I think that's right. It is about Christ being victorious. But some of the questions as to victorious over whom, over who are the people of God victorious, and in what setting was the book written? But again, as a means of introduction, I kind of want to take you very briefly on my own personal experience, and it's not a long story; it's very short. Look, I growing up around good, godly people and good preaching and teaching, I heard at least two different explanations as far as the dating of the book. Was it written before AD 70? And then a lot of other folks say, well, it's written after AD 70, probably in the late 90s AD. And I think the two different oppressors that I heard from good preaching over the years, some would say, well, this book is about, the destruction of Jerusalem. A lot of others would say, no, it's about Rome or a particular emperor that was persecuting the church early on. And then some, not so much in the churches of Christ, but some among other writers, Christian writers, if you will, and I'm using that term broadly there, or writers professing to be Christian that write with a Christian slant, a biblical, worldview. They would say that the book of Revelation is still future, that it contains things that are still yet future. And even in churches of Christ, there are some, hey, Terry Crooks, good morning. Thanks for watching. Truth or Proof, I'm interested in this. Yeah, you believe the entire book has happened. Not sure if that's a popular view. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's popular either. But I'm sharing a little bit about my experience of my own study, and then I'm going to get into some of the details. And thanks for watching Truth with Proof. So hearing various views, even among very smart and educated writers, especially, was it written before AD 70? Was it written after AD 70? That kind of thing. And who is the oppressor of the book? Is it Jerusalem? Good morning, Connie Barden. Good morning, Christy House. Thanks for watching, Christy. Is the oppressor of the book Rome or one of the Roman emperors? And then again, in a very broad way, there are many other writers among Christendom who will say that the book is future and that it pertains to the end of time and some tribulation at the very end. Let me just say on the outset, I do not believe that at all, that the book of Revelation is about something at the very end of time and that kind of thing. Hide and watch, good morning. Thank you so much for watching. And like I said, do me a favor this morning. I'm solo by myself. Tony's not with me. He's out of pocket. He's doing okay, but he's not able to be on the show. So share this video, if you would, and help spread the news and help with the algorithm. What I wanted to say as far as my personal journey goes, I began to question, to study, to scrutinize, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. We need to test all things. And we don't need to believe things just because people say them or we heard good people say certain things or because we've already believed them. We've always believed them or we've always heard them that way. And so I began studying, I began questioning more about the book of Revelation and questioning things I'd heard about the date, early date, late date, who the oppressor is. Was it Jerusalem? Was it Rome? Was it Domitian, another ruler? Thank you. Hey to everybody. Antonio, sorry if I don't say hey to everybody coming in, but I really appreciate all these comments. Keep them coming. And as I'm able, I will try to mention them or highlight them in some kind of way. But the more I looked at them, especially, and I'm going to talk about this more later. I'm going to jump ahead for a moment, then reel myself back in. Especially when it comes to the dating of the book, I used to hear, and I still do, and I've read good writers, otherwise, educated folks saying things about the date of the book, and they often quote, "Hey, Ted Hook Knight, thanks for listening, brother." Connie Bard, I never understood how one can say it is future, the book of Revelation, when the first verse says shortly to pass. Yeah, we're going to look at that in a few moments. There's something to that, isn't it, Miss Connie? So, and if you've listened to me before, listened to some of my audio podcasts, you know some of the things probably that I'm going to say. But again, sharing part of my journey is I began to question more and to study more. I became dissatisfied, let's just say that, with dating explanations from the patristic fathers, the so-called church fathers, the writers of the second and third century, and that kind of thing. And look, I realize it can be helpful, it can be supplemental when you're studying something to consider what ancient history says. That there's something to that can be helpful. But when we're studying a book of the Bible, in my mind, and this is what I came to believe as I studied it more, and not just the book of Revelation, but the entire New Testament, I became more and more convicted of this one important idea, this one important truth, and that is the internal evidence of the book. Any book, including the book of Revelation, the internal evidences, the verses themselves, the details that are given within the book are weighty. They carry much more weight than, well, Polycarp said, or, Irenaeus said, or Eusebius said. Eusebius quoted so-and-so. And I'm not throwing those out completely like, you're a fool if you ever look at that. That's neat. It has its place to consider as a secondary deal. But what I began to, and I'm looking back at my notes that I've made in the last few years on the book of Revelation, I was trying to, if I could put my finger on what I said at the beginning of some of my notes as pertains to the dating. Like I said, I'm jumping ahead, then I'm going to go back. The more I looked at the dating of it, I began to appreciate and favor more the internal evidences of the book as to who wrote it, when it was written, why he was writing the things he was writing, and those kinds of things. So I have come to believe that the most stable argument regarding the dating of the book is from the actual text itself. And if you study the book of Revelation a lot, then you probably have an idea where I'm going, or I will go, or I will reference in a moment. Revelation 17. I am going to reference a person to Revelation 17. I'm going to look at some things there in a few moments. But again, I jumped ahead to an example of something I want to discuss in the book of Revelation, and then I want to step back for a moment. So, yeah, thanks, John. Revelation is specific to the 7 churches of Asia in the first century. To apply these things specifically to the modern day and future is horrible hermeneutics. Yeah, absolutely, John. I agree. Bad hermeneutics, bad interpreting work has been done if one just immediately jumps to our time. We need to see it how they would have saw it. And I have my Bible open to the book of Revelation. And so here's where I want to go next. I jumped ahead. I talked just briefly about the dating, and I think that internal evidences are more weighty than external evidences as to when it was written. But before I go into that more, I want to say this, and I have this written down in my own words in a little document that I put together that I think maybe even some of our viewers, I have shared it with you in times past, but I jotted down just in the past, and I still believe this, that Daniel and Revelation must be considered together. Daniel, the book of Daniel, cannot be ignored in interpreting the book of Revelation. And the reason why is because Daniel spoke of the Roman Empire that was to come. And he spoke of an oppressor that would arise from within that fourth kingdom, a little horn. Thank you, Wayne Vaughn. Amen. John, I hold the late date view, but even so, it is not a point of division or argument. No, it's, I would say more than anything, it is an academic matter. Certainly not a point of splitting the church over this subject. But we do want to be, and I know John would agree, we do want to be as accurate as possible and not merely say, well, it's just an academic thing, so who cares? Well, many people do care about academic things, and I do. There are things that do not pertain directly to our salvation, but if we're not careful, it could lead us teaching some things that could get us into some trouble, that would lead people the wrong direction. We don't want to be careless with Scripture. So in order to appreciate the book of Revelation and the oppressor of the book, the dating of the book, and even the fulfillment. And those are three things that I hope to briefly cover. This may not be like a full out episode as long as Tony and I normally go, but these three things I want us to consider briefly. And what I have come to believe, and this is what I'm sharing with you, that to understand Revelation correctly, we've got to get into the book of Daniel. And folks, I rarely do this, but I wanted to share with you, there are probably other commentaries that are helpful, but I have found Drew Leonard's commentary, Exposition of Daniel, to be very helpful. He is very careful with the text itself, the book of Daniel, and he keeps it in its context and in its historical background, and he is quote-unquote conservative. That is, he is not liberal. That, and by that I mean he believes in the inspiration of the Scriptures, the inspired prophecies of the book of Daniel. He believes in predictive prophecy and that kind of thing. He is not what would be called a liberal scholar, a liberal writer who doesn't believe that the book of Daniel was written in the actual time frame of Daniel's life in the 500s, 600, 500s BC. He does, and he's a very good conservative writer in that way. And I would like to, if you're looking for a commentary to help you in these two more complex books to lay beside your Bible after you've read your Bible in the book of Daniel or the book of Revelation several times, I would encourage you to glance at that book that I just recommended to you, Exposition of Daniel by Drew Leonard. And he even deals with some of the arguments that are made by some of the other Brotherhood writers that offer some good thoughts. And he with tact and respect, he deals with some of the common arguments, even among some of the well-known writers, such as, I think, like John Rex Turner, Foy Wallace, and some others like that. I hope I didn't leave out any names or get those wrong, but if I recall correctly, those are two of the names that sometimes he will offer his, explanation or correction of something that was said, or he will disagree when he believes that the text says otherwise, and he does it gently and with respect, and in a way that's easy to follow. It's not a commentary that's too technical. I have found it very helpful. So, I've said a lot, but probably hadn't said anything significant. But I think one of the most significant things that I have said so far is this. What I have come to appreciate is, number one, the internal evidences of the book of Revelation as far as when it was written. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more in just a few moments. But I backed up a step from that. And the second main idea that I've shared so far, just in this podcast, maybe with too many words, but the thing that I've tried to draw out is that I've come to believe, I've completely be convinced that to understand the book of Revelation correctly, we must go to Daniel, because Daniel foresaw 4 world empires. And I'm not going to read many verses just because I won't have time to do what I intend to do, but I'm going to point our viewers to the passages and let you study these in more detail. But Daniel chapter 2, you remember, is the record in the book of Daniel of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the colossal image. And the Daniel chapter 2, verse 36 through 45 is the interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And the head of gold was Babylon. The next part was Medo-Persia. This is Daniel 2:39. And then verse 40, there was a 4th kingdom that Nebuchadnezzar saw that was as strong as iron, and inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Well, this is in the history of the world. This is the head of gold, Babylon, and then Medo-Persia. The Medes rose about the same time as the Persians. They were, you read in Daniel of them together, the Medes and the Persians. Even as the Persian power excelled more, they actually had Mede rulers under them in certain areas of their dominion. Then, of course, one of the greatest of the Persian kings was Cyrus. You remember Cyrus the Great. So you got Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, and those following him. The Medes and the Persians, number 2. And then third, you've got Greece. And you read about Greece, is the one that's most familiar, really, that headed it up, Alexander the Great. And then the 4th kingdom, you have Rome. And that's a timeline for world history and also Bible history. We see in history, not just in the Bible, these kingdoms rise, take precedence, prominence, power, rule, dominion, and then over time, each of them succumb to another nation after them. They fall. And God had said through Daniel 2:44, that in the days of the Roman kings, the God of heaven would set up a kingdom which would never be destroyed. That's the messianic phase of God's kingdom, aka the church, Jesus' church. Daniel chapter 7 is another pivotal chapter in Daniel that must be studied in order to appreciate the book of Revelation and to understand it and interpret it correctly. Because Daniel has a vision of 4 beasts. And again, I won't be able to read all these verses, but I'm pointing you to Daniel chapter 7 and verse 4. The first beast in Daniel's vision reflects and goes back and points back to the head of gold in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, Babylon. The first was like a lion. And then the second, number 2, verse 5, was like a bear. That's the Medo-Persian power. Verse 6, another like a leopard. That's the Grecian power, the Greek power. And then verse 7, the 4th kingdom, a 4th beast, that's the Roman rulers, the Roman power. So in verses 4, 5, 6, and 7, this is Daniel 7, verses 4 through 7, he discusses in brief these 4 world empires. And again, it corresponds to chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the ruler of Babylon. He had a vision, and that vision was a colossal image with a head, shoulders, chest, waist, thighs, legs, feet, and all that. and it was made up of 4 parts. And the 4th part represented a kingdom that would be from many days after the time of Daniel, we know through history to be the Roman power. And in Daniel chapter 7, Daniel is not seeing a colossal image, a head, a man, but he's having a vision of 4 beasts. This is Daniel chapter 7, verse 3. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. That's Babylon. And other prophets in the Bible spoke of Babylon being like a lion. You might consider Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 7. Verse 5, and suddenly another beast, a second, like a bear. It was raised up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and they said thus to it, arise, devour much flesh. Well, we know from history and from the book of Daniel, this is the Medo-Persian power. The Medo-Persian power. Verse 6, after this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. That's the Grecian power, its speed like a leopard. The 4 heads no doubt point to the 4 generals to whom Alexander's kingdom would be divided after his death. His premature death, I might add. He was young when he died. Daniel 7, verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. That 4th beast was the Roman power. So the book of Revelation, if we're going to understand it properly and correctly and in its context, we've got to look at Daniel first, because Daniel foresaw things that would go all the way to the time of Christ and even past the time of Jesus' earthly ministry. And we read about that in the 70 weeks in Daniel chapter 9 as well. But continue with me in Daniel chapter 7, verse 8, and I'm going to share what I believe to be the little horn. I was considering the horns of that 4th beast, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots, and there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words or great things. That little horn that would arise out of Rome, I believe, and I'm not by myself in this, there are others who believe this, and I could quote them to show that, hey, I'm not a nut. But I believe this to be, from my own studies, Domitian. Okay, the little horn, Domitian. Now, this little horn in Daniel 7, verse 8, is not to be confused with the little horn in the vision of the ram and the goat in chapter 8. Okay, and I have in the past, before I studied this very deeply, I confused the two. And I've heard people speak of the little horn in chapter 8 and mix it with chapter 7. But in chapter 7, Daniel is seeing 4 beasts. Well, in Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar saw 4 kingdoms. The kingdoms are beasts, the beasts are kingdoms. The first of them was in Babylon's own time, because it was Babylon itself and Nebuchadnezzar. And then after Babylon, you read in Daniel chapter 5, verse 1 and following, after Babylon were the Medes and the Persians. And you can read about Belshazzar, apparently one of the last rulers of Babylon, how he died and he was killed, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom. Daniel 5, verse 31. So the Medes and the Persians were the second beast. The third beast was the Grecian beast, the Grecian kingdom, Daniel 7, verse 6. And then verse 7, the 4th beast that was dreadful and terrible. And in chapter 2, Daniel had said in interpreting Nebuchadnezzar's dream that 4th beast, that 4th kingdom, which is the 4th beast, uh, would break and shatter everything. It would be greater than all the ones before it. And then he added this prophecy. And in the days of those kings, the Roman kings, the God of heaven would set up a kingdom that would never be destroyed. All right. So during the time of that fourth kingdom and the kingdoms of Rome, the kings, the emperors of Rome, Daniel foresaw a little horn coming up. And I would encourage you to continue to read the rest of Daniel chapter 7, including how the Son of Man, the Christ, would receive the kingdom, how it would be established during the times of the fourth beast, the Roman kingdom. That's in Daniel 7, verses 13 and 14. Continue looking with me at Daniel 7 while I mute myself and clear my throat. Thank you. Sorry for the pause there. Daniel chapter 7. Look with me at verse 15. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit within my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of those who stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. Those great beasts which are four kings, which arise out of the earth. Verse 18. Yeah, hey, it is easy to confuse some of these things. You have to, one of the things that's helped me perhaps as much or more than anything is while I'm looking at these things, having my own, either if you like to type or your own piece of paper and jot things down in your own words, write references so you can keep them separated in your own mind. That's helped me a lot. You probably do that. Others do. That's no big secret, but just taking notes, taking one's own notes can help a lot in keeping things straight in one's own mind. It's helped me a lot. But the saints of the Most High, look at Daniel 7, verse 18. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I wish to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured, broke in pieces, and trampled the residue with its feet. And the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, before which 3 fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth which spoke pompous words, whose appearance was greater than his fellows. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and a judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High. And the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. Thus he said, this is Daniel 7:23. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth. Folks, we know from history what that is. You don't need a commentary to know what that is, folks. That's Rome. Rome was that power. It fits the time frame. The fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms. It would be different and greater than Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece. It would devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it in pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings, who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time, and times, and half a time. But the court shall be seated, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and destroy it forever. Then the kingdom and dominion, and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven, shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve him. This is the end of the account. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly troubled me, and my countenance changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. And if you've been watching this show for a while, you know that Tony has used that passage for a long time as a springboard for his Cogitations podcast. how Daniel's thoughts much troubled him, but he kept the matter in his heart. And Tony plays on that, and he says, well, in this podcast, I'm not going to keep the matter in my heart. I'm going to discuss it. In Daniel chapter 8, and that's the most reading I'm going to do for a while, folks, so just hang with me. Daniel chapter 8, he details more about the second and third beast of that vision. The Medes and the Persians and the Grecian power, the Greeks is the word I meant to say. The ram and the goat. The ram pushing westward, northward, southward, and then the male goat coming from the west across the surface of the whole earth and didn't even touch the ground, and then it hit the side of the ram with two horns. And he was moved with rage and attacked the ram and broke his two horns. And there was no power in the ram. This is Daniel 8, verse 7. There was no power in the ram to withstand him. Folks, this is a historical, a prophetic, it's a prophecy of what we know happened in history later. Greece, with Alexander, came from the west and took over the Medes and the Persians, dominated the Persians. And out of the Grecian power, the male goat, verse 8, came a little horn. This would be, from history, Antiochus Epiphanes IV. Again, this is something that many Bible scholars agree on. There are some that don't, and I'm not going to address that. But these are things that I'm laying down that, I've done my own homework. I've done my own study. You perhaps have too. And if you haven't, hey, I encourage you, look into this more, study it more. It's going to help you in appreciating prophecy and the unfolding of history as God foretold through Daniel that it would happen. In Daniel chapter 8, verse 20, Daniel is very specific. The ram which you saw having the two horns are the kings of Media and Persia, and the male goat is the kingdom of Greece. So see, I don't need a commentary to know that. At the end of chapter 8, after Daniel had prophesied about things yet future in his time, he said that this vision that he had was to be sealed up. This is chapter 8, verse 26. Seal up the vision, for it refers to many days in the future. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick for days, etc. Seal up the vision, for it refers to many days in the future. Now, that's a very interesting statement, and it reminds me of Revelation chapter 22. If you look at Revelation chapter 22, when John comes to the end of his revelation, he says similar words, but the opposite. He says in Revelation 22, verse 10, that the angel said to him, do not seal the words of the prophecy of this book. That would be the book of Revelation. For the time is at hand. Now, I know, Miss Connie, you made a comment earlier, and I said amen. The book of Revelation has time signatures. And in my judgment, those time signatures are often overlooked. But before I get into that more, I want to, and I'm not gonna go in depth, okay? But before I get into that more, I want to finish very quickly with Daniel. In Daniel chapter 9, the 70 weeks was a prophecy regarding the time of the people going back to the promised land, to the time Christ came and died, and all the way to the time when an anointed one, not the Christ, Jesus, but a certain anointed power, which in the context of the first century would be the Roman emperor's son, Titus, Vespasian's son, Titus, who destroyed the holy city. You can read about that in Daniel 9, verse 26. The people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. We know from history that was Titus, who eventually became the next emperor after his father Vespasian. Daniel 9:27, the 70 weeks culminates in the destruction of Jerusalem after the ministry of the Messiah, after the ministry of Jesus Christ, which Jesus spoke of this as well. Matthew chapter 24, Mark chapter 13, and also in Luke. Jesus had foretold the destruction of Jerusalem and the punishment of Judah, the Jews and Jerusalem, for rejecting the Messiah and the gospel. Now, I've said a lot of things, and I want to go back to my notes to stay on track. I mentioned the little horn that would make war with the saints and prevail against them for a time until the Ancient of Days came and a judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High. That was Daniel 7:17 through 27. So you got the four world empires of Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. And then a little horn in Daniel 7 coming up from the Roman rulers. I believe this to culminate in Domitian. And I believe this corresponds and harmonizes with the book of Revelation like no other explanation. So that's a big point of this whole podcast. If you're going to appreciate and understand the book of Revelation, you've got to get into Daniel. And so I'd encourage you to do that. The content of Revelation seems clear, and it suggests that the work revolves around the Roman oppressor, the Roman ruler, the Roman rulers, the Roman power, the Roman affair, especially through the oppression of the little horn that Daniel foretold, that I am putting forth to you as Domitian. Now, whether this letter was written before or after, early or late, and that kind of thing, it still stands that the Roman affair is in mind. The Roman power, the Roman beast, the Roman empire is the power that was persecuting. And there are several reasons why I believe Rome and Domitian are in view and not Jerusalem. All right. And I may mention that if I don't feel like I've gone too far, too long, by addressing the identity of the oppressor. Wayne Vaughn, that's what I have for Revelation also. Yeah. Yeah, and a person can come to these conclusions. Again, you can come to this conclusion by looking at the text. And like I said a moment ago, the dating of the book, I have come to believe that the internal evidences outweigh and are specific. And I'll get to that in a moment. I want to mention a few things about the identity of the oppressor in the book. And I'm going back to my notes. I'm looking over here to the side. Daniel speaks, as I said a moment ago, of the fourth beast that would arise. Daniel's image is John's image. All right? The descriptions of the oppressor in the book of Revelation is found in Revelation 17 and 18. And from my reading and my study and my understanding, these descriptions of the oppressing power that oppressed the Christians in the first century fit Rome and Domitian, not Jerusalem. And here's my reasons. Jerusalem was not a city of the seven hills, but Rome was frequently referred to as that. Jerusalem was not over the kings of the earth, Revelation 17:18. Rome ruled over the kings of the earth, not Jerusalem. Rome, not Jerusalem, was a place of thriving commerce with 29 different commercial items mentioned. That's in Revelation 18, 1 through 24. Politically and commercially, Rome is being discussed in Revelation 18. Jerusalem did not have sea workers, Revelation 18, 17 through 19, but Rome did. And also, Jerusalem was not lamented over by the whole world when she fell, but Rome was, and Jerusalem, Domitian and his imperial cult, pinched the incense and hail Caesar, give allegiance to him, the mark of the beast, and all that in the context of the first century. When Domitian and Rome fell, it was lamented over by the whole world because it affected commerce over the world. Revelation 18, there are a number of references. Jerusalem was barely in existence during the latter part of the first century, but Rome's fall was lamented by all. I could go on. It would be surprising to hear nothing further about the Roman persecution when Daniel 2 and 7 are plainly about the fourth kingdom, Rome. Rome was a major threat in the late first century. And if we were to never hear anything about God's kingdom or God's people being vindicated over the Roman power, it would be surprising. If Revelation is about the destruction of Jerusalem, my honest question would be, why did John send a letter about the fall of Jerusalem to 7 churches in Asia Minor? I know people that believe that view have their own explanations of that, but personally, I have not been satisfied with those explanations. I believe wholly that Rome and Domitian is the villain and affected Asia Minor. Yeah, truth of proof. That's why I believe all this has happened. Yeah, Revelation 22:20. Yeah, and I'm going to mention that again in a moment, truth of proof. If you can stay with us, I might offer something that'd be interesting to you. I don't know. I hope I can. But yeah, I'm with you. Truly, Rome is the villain and affected Asia Minor, whereas Jerusalem did not. So, a universal enforcement of the Roman power, emperor worship, which is actually Revelation 13:12. I'm going to read that. A universal enforcement of that did not exist prior to Domitian. And that's one of the big reasons why I keep saying Domitian, the little horn. Inevitably, people that understand that the book of Revelation was written in the first century and to a first century audience will agree with most of what I've said so far. But then there is some disagreement over, which exact emperor was the little horn? And the disagreement is among good folks, not blatant false teachers, but good folks, smart teachers, godly folks, godly men. I'm not trying to put them down, folks, and this is not a point of contention to split the church over this. I'm giving you, my study, at least a brief snippet of it from the book of Revelation. Revelation 13:12, and he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. That's the enforcement of emperor worship that did not exist prior to Domitian. A lot of people will think that the little horn of Daniel 7 was Nero. And from what I have studied and how it lines up and doesn't line up with Revelation, is that Nero persecuted the Christians around Rome, but his persecution was limited to the imperial city. Domitian persecuted the Christians worldwide by striving to require people to hail allegiance to him. And there is evidence that suggests he was doing this to give credit or credence, more credibility, I should say, to his own emperorship. There's a little book, I have it somewhere on my shelf, A Consequence of Legitimacy by Kevin W. Rhodes. A Consequence of Legitimacy by Kevin W. Rhodes. You might check that out. He argues some of these things historically, that the emperor worship Domitian was enforcing was to legitimize his power. You might consider that. I think that was a dissertation by Brother Kevin Rhodes from several years ago. I should have brought the book over here. I'd show you. But it might help in the background and the appreciation of the historical context. Now, what I want to do next is look briefly. Drew's got some good stuff. Truth with proof. Yeah, he's got some good stuff. I don't always agree with him on every single thing. I don't have to, and I don't think he expects me to. I know Drew. But I'm going to tell you, his exposition on Daniel I have found to be very helpful. And I have not read a bunch of Daniel commentaries, because a lot of them just have stuff in there that immediately I'm turned off by, some of the shallow arguments. But Daniel's exposition, Drew Leonard's exposition of Daniel. This is the second time now in this show today that I've promoted it, and I don't do that, but I encourage the viewers to check it out. Wayne, yes, let's see, info on getting that. I think probably the best way, Drew does have a website, cadleonard.com. I'll try to put that in the comments, cadleonard.com. I think his books can be ordered through, I can't remember now, Lulu or something like that. But he can also be contacted by email. Drew's good about emailing. It's Drew Leonard at live.com. So I'd encourage you to contact him, Drew Leonard at live.com. I've had a lot of interactions with Drew, and I know that his books are available. Some of them hardback, all of them paperback. And if you don't have the money to buy them, I think he will send you a digital copy of his books. I know I've heard him say that publicly, so I hope I'm not stepping out there. I don't think I am. Let me go through very quickly some things about the dating of the book that I've put down. I mentioned a moment ago about the internal evidences. Within the book of Revelation, chapter 17, I think here to be the only real stable information about the actual dating of the text. Revelation 17, yeah, you're welcome, Wayne. And I'll try to comment after the show on here and put the information as well instead of just saying it. Revelation 17, verses 8 through 11. The beast, the identity of the beast. The beast, the persecuting power in the book of Revelation in the vision. The beast that you saw was and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was and is not and yet is. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short time. The beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7, and is going to perdition. Now that's a lot there. I'll pause there. In verse 10, this is what I believe to be the best internal evidence for the dating. John insists that the beast is not, which probably indicates that John is writing before Domitian's persecution. The beast is not. It is not yet. So that would mean that he's writing, if Domitian is the beast, the little horn of Daniel 7, the little horn that arises and becomes a great power and wages war against the saints of the Most High, Daniel 7, if he is the beast, then John is saying that he is writing before the Domitian persecution. Domitian reigned from 81 to 96. So just think on that for a moment. 81 to 96, and he's writing before that. There's strong evidence that the book of Revelation was written before 81. Yeah, AD 81, 8-1. I want to be clear. All right. That's clear evidence that the persecution from the beast was not ongoing during the time of the writing. If Domitian is the beast, John openly states that he is not yet present during the reception of the vision. Now, some say you can't derive that from these passages, but consider this. First, it's John's direct identification of the enemy, of the beast. And seeing specific kings here would make sense in the first century. Now, I believe that wholeheartedly. That's why I would share that. And also the numbers, second, the numbers are not as symbolic as some people try to insist. They point to the identity of the beast, of the oppressor. 8 and 11 are the numbers. 7 and 10 are not. You go back and look at that in Daniel 7 7 and 8, and 24 and 25. Third, Daniel's text harmonizes well with viewing specific kings. And he says in verse 10, Revelation 17:10, 5 have fallen, one is. Well, if you start counting with Augustus, 1, I just do this with my fingers, 1 Augustus, 2 Tiberius, 3 Caligula, 4 Claudius, 5 Nero, 6 Vespasian, 7 Titus, and 8 Domitian. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Augustus was the first king of Rome, not Julius Caesar. I think it was Foy Wallace who tried to count Julius Caesar as the first king of Rome, and I disagree, and so do historians. If you go online and research this matter, and I've done that, it wasn't Julius Caesar. He was not the first emperor. Augustus, Caesar Augustus, was the first king. And so when John was writing the Revelation, he said there are 7 kings, 5 have fallen. Okay, well, if the first was Augustus, the second was Tiberius, third was Caligula, fourth was Claudius, and the fifth was Nero. 5 have fallen. That includes Nero. Nero was dead when Revelation was written. Wow. 5 have fallen. 1 is. Well, who is the one that is after Nero, the 5th? Vespasian. We know from history Vespasian reigned from 69 to 79. So the one that is would indicate when this letter, this book, was written. I believe that's sufficient evidence to show the book of Revelation was written between 69 and 79 AD. Somebody says, well, which one was it? 69, 70, 71? I don't know for sure. But that's what I believe based on this internal evidence. You've got Vespasian. Yeah, Drew has a YouTube channel. Hey, Alabama. Yeah. Revelation 17, you've got the 5 which are fallen that are dead. The 6th, the one that is, was Vespasian. So Vespasian was ruling when Revelation was written. Well, when did Vespasian rule? Just look it up in history. AD 69 through 79. And the other has not yet come. That's Titus after Vespasian. And when he comes, that's Titus, he must continue a short time. We know from history Titus ruled for 2 years, a short time. The beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th. Well, as I counted a moment ago, when you count from Augustus, 8 rulers, 1 Augustus, 2 Tiberius, 3 Caligula, 4 Claudius, 5 Nero, 6 Vespasian, 7 Titus, 8 Domitian, the 8th that's being spoken of here, the beast that was and is not. You see, this was some called Domitian, Nero revived. The 8th that was, he was like Nero, and is not, is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7, and is going to destruction or perdition. All right, let me go back to my notes, see if I can't clarify myself. So Daniel's text harmonizes well when you view specific kings in Revelation 17. It harmonizes. All right. Beginning with Octavian, Augustus Caesar. There can be no harmony with Daniel 7 if taking a different route, if you start from another individual. So I'm completely satisfied with this explanation because, number one, the strongest arguments for dating a letter are the internal, not the external. And that's what got me going into this deep study several years ago. I got labored and tired of reading uninspired quotes. Well, Flavian Josephus said, well, Irenaeus said, or Eusebius said, so-and-so said. I got tired of that. I'm not trying to be ugly. I just don't buy those arguments. I'm just being honest. It's the internal arguments to me that reign supreme. And also, I'm completely satisfied with this dating explanation because it's consistent with the rest of Revelation and the book of Daniel. Daniel's 4th kingdom was to be Rome. out of which a ruler came that would make war with the saints. Just go back and saturate yourself in Daniel 7. 5 have fallen. The one who is Vespasian, the other who is not yet come, Titus, and then the 8th, Domitian. The book could not have been written in the time of Domitian and then fulfilled in his reign as well. If he reigned from 81 to 96. The beast, Domitian, was yet to come when the book was written. Just read carefully, chapter 17, verses 9 through 11. So you take that date during the reign of Vespasian, and that would resolve several difficult things about the dating of the book. And Drew Leonard outlines these in his book. Number one, it would allow John to reference Nero in the vision after the manner of the circulating myth as the beast that was wounded to death and then healed, as he seemingly does in chapter 13, verses 3 and 4. Domitian had the same evil quality of Nero and was worse in some aspects. He was not only the image of Nero, but was Nero reincarnated in his actions. Yeah, thanks, Miss Connie. Thanks. You're welcome for the good info. And go join Barry. Thank you so much for supporting the show and watching and sharing. Thank you so much. Number two, this would resolve this. It would allow the vision to have been penned during Vespasian's reign, but then transported to the mainland to be circulated and seen in the days of Domitian. And Irenaeus in his writings suggests that, okay? Third, it would also allow John to say that the beast, Domitian, is not yet. Chapter 17, verses 8 through 11. So consider all those understanding the book of Revelation this way from the text, the internal evidences, helps us to resolve some of the difficult things about the dating of the book. I've mentioned the oppressor and the specific oppressor, not only just Rome, but Domitian, and then the dating. Finally, I want to touch just for a moment on the timing of fulfillment. And this is something Miss Connie Barden mentioned a moment ago. If you're still with me, thank you so much. Revelation 1, verse 1, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants things which must shortly take place. Verse 3, blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of this prophecy and keep those things which are written in it, for the time is near. So John Christ, through the angel, was revealing to John what had been concealed, previously been concealed. And he said it was things which must shortly take place, must quickly take place. Verse 3, for the time is near. Doesn't make sense then to say, well, Revelation is yet future. Because in the first century, it was near. It was either near then or it wasn't. John was wrong. But a lot of people just miss this. But he opens the book by saying that the things would shortly take place and they were at hand. But then look at the end of the book. Well, before we get to the end of the book, look at Revelation 14:7. One of the angels said in the vision, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. That means that the book of Revelation was at hand then. The judgment wasn't to come, hundreds of years later or thousands of years later. When John wrote it in the first century, the hour of judgment has come. It has come. That's powerful, powerful evidence. Now, Revelation 22. Look with me at verse 6. Then he, the angel, said to me, these words are faithful and true, and the Lord God of the holy prophets sent his angel to show his servants the things which must shortly take place. Notice that, things which must shortly take place. Behold, I am coming quickly. Blessed is he who keeps the words of the prophecy of this book. Now I, John, saw and heard these things, and when I heard and saw, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel who showed me these things. Then he said to me, see that you do not do that, for I am your fellow servant and of your brethren the prophets, and of those who keep the words of this book, worship God. And he said to me, do not seal the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. Verse 12, behold, I am coming quickly. Verse 20, surely I am coming quickly. If that's speaking of Jesus' second coming, his bodily second coming, that's a super slow coming. Because it's been over 2,000 years and he hadn't come yet. Nah, that's not talking about his second coming, folks. That's talking about his figurative coming and judgment on Rome and Domitian. The statements that I just read, things which must shortly take place, the things are at hand, this book is to be left unsealed, the time is at hand. These are fixed statements, like bookends at the beginning and the end of the book to show the timing of the whole entire book. And some have called that an inclusio argument. Everything inside these time signatures was to shortly come to pass, and that's why I'm convinced even Revelation 20 and 21 is not about the eternal state. The eternal state has not yet happened. It's yet future. And that might be what Truth with Proof has in mind. I don't mean to call you out, bro, but that may be what you had in mind too. I noticed some of your comments earlier with Revelation 20 and 21, maybe you mentioned as well. I'm not sure. But that's how the timeline, that's how it lines out because of these time signatures, these fixed statements at the beginning and the end of the book. Now, what I have noticed, all right, so the testimony of the book states that the vision has already and completely been fulfilled in the fall of Domitian in Rome. Daniel was told to seal up his vision, for the events about the ram and the goat were yet future, many days in the future, about 300 to 400 years in his time, to the time when it was fulfilled in the 100s BC with Antiochus Epiphanes IV. Revelation says, don't seal this vision. It's about to happen. So the opposite of what Daniel was told. So surely the book of Revelation then, just on the surface of it, without even going in as far as we have, it would show that the book of Revelation was going to be fulfilled in less than 400 years. Many years less than 400, really. All right. That's why I emphasize Rome culminating in Domitian. All right. The testimony of the book states that the vision has already and completely been fulfilled, but now what? What I have noticed with the arguments of some good brethren is that they try to say part of the book was at hand, and in our time, part of the book is still to be fulfilled, especially the very end. I'm going to tell you something. Listen, Tony says this, lean in and listen. I just leaned in physically myself. I used to believe that there are good brethren who believe nearly all of it's been fulfilled except for the very end, because they're convinced that the very end is about heaven. But if we take the time signatures of this book, the beginning and the end, and that includes all the statements that people say are about heaven in chapters 21 and 22, and what they say is the final judgment in chapter 20, which I am not convinced it's the final judgment being mentioned there. Let me just touch that real quick, no extra charge. Revelation 20 describes the victory of God's people from the perspective of God's people. That's Revelation 20, verses 1 through 10. Victory from the perspective of the saints. What victory? The victory of the end of time? No. The victory over Domitian in Rome. You read about the 1,000 years even. Folks, the 1,000 years, that's a figurative description for completeness. The 1,000 years assures the saints that they are completely victorious over Satan and Satan's work with Rome, because Rome and Domitian were completely stopped. And that's the idea of Revelation 20, verses 1 through 10, victory from the perspective of the saints. But then in verses 11 through 15, that a lot of good folks think this is talking about the judgment at the end of time. Folks, I don't think it can't be so. Revelation 20, verses 11 through 15 are describing the demise of Domitian in Rome from the perspective of the Roman wicked, verses 11 through 15. I have to interpret it that way, given the context, given the time signatures. The beginning of the book, the end of the book. It's about to happen. Don't seal the vision. It's at hand. Well, that's not talking about the final judgment. The final judgment was not at hand in the first century. The eternal state of heaven was not at hand in the first century. They might have thought it was, but it wasn't. The book of Revelation says that this pertains to the Domitian and Roman persecution. What happens is people that try to think that the end, the very end, is still to be fulfilled, that is dividing the book into the things that were at hand and the things that were not at hand. The thing is, though, the book does not give indication to understand it this way. There's no good reason, I jotted this down, no good reason to avoid the straightforward meaning of the fixed time signatures in the book. I think that if a person tries to split the book, they do that because they perhaps misunderstand this last section of the book, where Revelation 20, John speaks of the judgment of Rome and the emperor. And in chapter 21, he speaks of the victorious church after the judgment of Domitian and Rome. The church emerges into a new environment, no tears, no sorrow, no pain. The former things have passed away. And I think what John does in this book, and at the end of this book too, is that he builds on the style of the Old Testament prophets. And so that section should be interpreted with that in mind, those exegetical principles in mind. We've got to remember the book of Revelation is highly figurative. And the book says that it was imminent. And so there's no contextual reason to think otherwise. I could go on more, but I hope that I've given our viewers some meat to think on about the book of Revelation. So let me summarize. To appreciate the book of Revelation and to understand it correctly, number one, remember, it wasn't written to us, but it is for us. We're reading someone else's mail. It was written in the first century. And to understand it correctly, we've got to consider Daniel. We've got to understand the four kingdoms and the fourth beast and the little horn that would rise out of the fourth kingdom that would speak pompous words and would persecute the saints of the Most High, but then judgment would be given against him and he'd be put in his place. God did that. We've got to see how Daniel ties in with the timeline of Revelation. We've got to appreciate the internal arguments for the dating and timeline of the book, the oppressor of the book, and also the fulfillment of the book. I hope these things have been helpful to you, giving you substance, giving you something to study more. You can see, I say you can see. I think you can see the information that's on the screen around you. I don't do this solo. You regular watchers, you know, I'm normally with Tony. But nearchurches@gmail.com is our tip jar. Tony and I do this as podcasters. This podcast, Christianity Now, is not a work of the local congregations where we are a part. This is the work of us as individuals, as podcasters. And if you would like to support us for the podcast, you can use the tip jar. Probably the best way to support us financially is to subscribe to our Substack, Christianity Now at Substack. Go to Substack and check out the many free articles we have. I would say 99, maybe 99.5% of our articles are free, and maybe 1% we give a special value, or at least we try to our subscribers. You can subscribe and support us through Substack for $5 a month. And that helps us out a lot. All the money that's being brought in through Substack is being used right now, every bit of it, to advertise the Christianity Now show, the channel. Go and share the YouTube channel. Go on YouTube, type in Christianity Now Streams, and please share us from YouTube. We're trying to build up our viewership on YouTube. If you're thinking, well, I can't help financially, that's okay. Help with your prayers. Pray for us. And also help us by making a few clicks, sharing this video and other videos that you find. All of our shows that come on Tuesday are uploaded on audio through Podbean. You can go to Cogitations on Podbean. They are there. And you can listen to these post live. You can listen to them while you're doing something else. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate the comments. I don't know that I attended to all the comments, but I really appreciate the comments, your interaction. And again, I want to ask you to do us a favor by sharing the video. Thank you so much for watching. And you may see Tony later on today. He may be online. He's been out of pocket, but he'll get back to normal soon. And has been spending some time with his family. So just, again, I don't know what else to say. I don't normally do this. Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all. And we will catch y'all. Tony says on the flip side, I say we'll catch you next time.